remember to use the mic.
Hey guys, what was the thought process on trading down?
Yeah, well, as we talked about before, we had 6 picks. We had 3 picks that were in the 6th and 7th round. We felt like we needed more picks in the middle rounds of this draft. We thought would be really valuable. So, been working on that for a couple of days now and talking with several different teams who are interested in moving up, and we finally were able to strike a deal with New Orleans.
And what was your analysis of Jahan, and where was he on your board?
Yeah, well, he was high on our board. Obviously, we took him at 16. The guy's got speed. He's got playmaking ability. He's got really competitiveness, some competitiveness when the ball's in the air. He's kind of like Terry in the fact that he's not like the biggest guy, but the 50-50 balls, he has the ability to go up and get those. The guy's just got tremendous ball skills, and he's got some versatility. So he can play in the slot, he can play outside, he can return punts. So he brings a lot to the table, and he helps us in a lot of different ways.
Ryan, you'd obviously spoken of the need to get Carson Wentz some weapons. Can you break down maybe what you saw out of that wide receiver field? There were so many of them, and did that give you confidence in moving down?
It did. We based on the way we had things evaluated, we had several of them in the first round. And so moving back, we felt pretty comfortable with it. And probably the biggest thing, more than anything else, though, is one of the guys we really liked was there, and that's why we jumped on it. I think that's really good about the way he plays that you really appreciate is that he goes after the football. He's got a tremendous catch radius, as you saw by some of the highlights. His focus on the ball is tremendous. And as Martin talked about, on those 50-50 balls, he's coming down with it. I mean, he really is. So you're excited about that. He reminds me of Deshaun Jackson a little bit. He reminds me of Steve Smith a little bit, a guy a little bit smaller in stature but plays bigger than that. And that's what we feel pretty comfortable and very confident about it. As Martin said, you watch him, he lines up in the slot, he winds up as a Z, he winds up as the X, and he also has some punt return ability as well.
Is punt returner something you would consider with him, early on here in his rookie season as a way to get him involved?
A little bit, but we do expect to put him on the football field an awful lot. He was one of the guys that our offensive coaches had rated a lot higher, and so we spent a lot more time on him just because they felt so confident about him in terms of a fit. We had a couple guys that we had true fits on, and he was one of the guys. And so, like Martin said, and then I said, he's one of the guys that we had rated highly in the first round.
And Martin, you spoke about wanting to trade back. When did that kind of become a reality for you that you felt like you could get it? Was it right when you guys were on the clock? And was that deal maybe easier than you expected, or was it harder to swing that? How did the whole thing come together?
Well, we had several teams that we were talking to over the last couple of days. We had actually when we did trade back and we're getting ready to make our pick, we had some of those same teams were still calling us. So we could have gone back again if we wanted to, but we felt like Jahan was too valuable in that spot to take him to pass on him. So, but no, it was a process, and as usual, you call around the league, you narrow down the people who are really serious, and we had discussions about the different options and which option was best for us in terms of moving back.
Yeah, Ron, just to follow up on that, how much of that, you always talk about reacting in the moment. So, 2 receivers went ahead of you guys. So how much were you kind of reacting to the stuff that played out in front of you?
Not necessarily that as much as, you do this based on how many players you feel fit the need that you have. Not just at receiver, but there were some other positions that went as well that, that we had to also pay attention to. But knowing that a guy that we had highly rated and felt very comfortable and confident about his ability, was available, we made the decision that he was the guy.
Jahan mentioned his versatility. I imagine he can play anywhere, but how do you see it shaking out with Curtis and Terry and just the three of them, what they can do together?
I think as a group, not just those two, but I think he's going to be able to mix in with the other guys for the most part. We have 5, 6, 7 guys that we feel very comfortable with, and it's about getting guys opportunities on the football field. He will play a number of positions for us. Very confident in his ability to learn and grow and develop as a football player.
Right. He said that you guys didn't talk a lot to him, so he was a little bit surprised. But it seemed like you guys liked him for a while. So when were you sold on him? What sold on you on him, and why didn't you feel the need to continue talking to him like you were to some others?
Well, probably the biggest thing is, when you look at guys and you break them down, you also look at who he's playing with. okay, and you know, not to knock any of his teammates, but I'm the quarterback they had was a good player. Okay, he wasn't a great player, but he was a good player, and he just seemed to make this guy better. And you saw the catches that he made. You know, I'm trying not to kill the kid, but you sit there and you think, well, he didn't throw a very accurate ball, but this guy was making him look good. You know, he caught over, you know, he caught for over 1,000 yards. I mean, he set records for Penn State, and you just know that there's more to him because, you know, it's not like there were a lot of weapons there around him. You know, his teammates were good, but they weren't, you know, I mean, you look at some of the other teams that had 2, 3, 4 weapons on the field at the same time, and you think, wow, this guy, you know, they knew the ball was going to him, and he was still making plays. And that's what gets you excited, especially when you put the tape on and you watch game after game and you see him catching 7, 8, 9, 10 balls a game. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
And obviously, you know, the size, not the biggest guy. So how, even at the line, how does he compensate for not having that kind
Quickness.
of size?
His play quickness is terrific. His ability to get off the line by using it and getting vertical very quickly into his routes. He runs very good routes, very precise. He's got a good stutter step to him where it looks like he may be trying to change directions, go somewhere else, and he just kind of hits it and goes. He's got a little bit of a burst to separate. And when the ball is in the air, you see him gather and go up and get it. I mean, his catch radius really is terrific.
The decision to move back, was that a case of if a certain guy isn't there, we're going to move back, or was that the plan all along was to try to move back?
Well, we certainly had targets that we talked about, but we've been working on a move back for a couple of days now, like I said, and we were leaning that way from the very beginning. So it was a process, like I said, and you know, we felt like we needed more picks coming into this draft. Obviously, you know, there's certain guys, if they had been there, we would have taken them. But the move back was something we've been talking about for several days.
And Ron, you kind of hinted at this, but to find a more polished receiver instead of just a really good athlete,
Right.
was that important to you?
That was important to us because, again, you know, we want to make sure there are weapons around Carson. We want to make sure we can protect him. And so as we go through this draft, we're keeping that in mind. I mean, that's part of our discussions when we looked up at the board and we looked at how many guys we had in both those categories and felt really good about those guys in those categories. That's why we felt good about going backwards, because we felt that if one guy wasn't there, another guy was potentially going to be there. And when we got to the point where we felt, you know, these were the values of these guys, and then we went ahead and made the decision that, okay, we're where we need to be, now we can pick.
Ron, this offseason you've been pretty clear about wanting to upgrade the offense, not just with Carson Wentz, but the last few weeks the goal, help block for him, help get him playmakers. Just to what degree for you, why did that become such a focus, you know, above it? Just felt like you needed to get this done.
Because we got the quarterback. You know, we have a guy that can make all the throws. You know, Taylor did a lot of good things for us, but when you watch some of the things that Carson has done, you know, we've got to now get guys that can get into that position to make those plays as well. So we just feel that getting a guy that's a polished receiver right now and ready to go will fit in very nicely with the rest of them. And you've got to have weapons. If you don't have those guys making the plays, then, you know, we've got to find them. Well, now's our chance to put those guys in position. But then again, as I said too, one thing that we did talk about is we got to protect them. You know, we've got what 6 more rounds to go. You know, and so we're gonna keep that in mind. But we also got some things on the defensive side we want to take care of as well.
And to that end, obviously you don't know the last few picks that have gone off, but like what's sort of the goal now for you guys going into day 2? Well,
what we'll do is, you know, we'll look at the board, we'll adjust it, you know, for rounds 2 and 3. We'll talk about what we feel our needs are, and then we'll try and compare it to the value of the players that we have up on the board. And one of the things that, you know, again, Martin will look at and with Marty and the rest of the scouts, you know, as to how to order those guys in terms of where we're going to stack them.
Martin, going into the draft, or maybe as the draft started tonight, was 5 about as far back as you felt comfortable going? Or could you have gone back 7 perhaps?
We had opportunities to go back pretty far in it. We had teams that were in the teens. We had one team in the 20s, and we had one team in the 30s that we were talking to. We felt like having a good number of players that we felt comfortable with, and not going past that group was important. And Jahan was certainly one of those players. And we felt good about that group and felt like at 16 we were going to get one of the guys that was really important to us.
Could you have conceivably gone back a couple more picks and still had a receiver specifically on your board that you liked that was good enough for you to take there?
We had an opportunity. Honestly, it's really funny because when Jahan was there, we talked about it. We had an offer to go back. We decided to turn the pick in, and all of a sudden the phone rang, 3 different teams calling at the same time. And I had one phone and then the other phone, and I'm handing other people to talk to people. So there were opportunities there, and it's funny because coming into it, everybody was trying to move back. But once we got in, around 11, 12, 13, people started trying to move up. So it worked out great for us. We're really excited about Jahan and what he brings to the table. Again, his versatility, his playmaking ability, and he's an awesome young man as well. And somebody asked a question about how come we didn't spend much time with them. A lot of times we're spending time with guys to answer questions that we have about them. And a lot of times we're not spending time with guys because we don't have a lot of questions about them. And Jahan is that type of guy.
A lot of talk about the board and kind of where you go next. If you look at the draft value charts, there's some questions about the equitable value going from 11 to 16 and picking up the 3rd and the 4th. Is that something you guys consider, the draft value charts and the points?
Well, there's several charts and there's different ways to value it. Martin handles that portion of it. And again, as we were going through it, he would show me, And then on one chart, he says, we're not getting all the total points, but when we look at the value of it, man, we're way ahead. So, if you sit there and you only win on one chart, well, you may lose on that. And it may just be a simple, 30, 40, 50 points. But then when you see the value chart and you see the money and you sit there and go, okay, that makes sense. So, we try to use them as just tools to help us make the decision more so than anything else. But, Martin was on top of everything as we went through that. And, he was punching it into the computer and it was spitting it back out. And we're looking at it. And we felt very comfortable. We really did. And I thought, Martin was on top of it.
Yeah, the charts are really guidelines for you of value. We actually have 2 charts that we use. And so in that particular trade, we actually lost on one chart and we won on the other chart. And when I was in San Francisco, we had 2 charts as well. Some teams have 3 or 4 different charts. So they're all across the board. It's really a guideline. It's about, if you've been doing this long enough, do you feel comfortable making that trade? Are you comfortable with that value that you're getting? We got a 3rd round and a 4th round pick. So going into tomorrow, we will have, our 2, we'll have that 3, and then going the second day, we have 2 4s now that we didn't have. We went from 6 picks to 8 picks. And the value of those picks is what's really important to us.
And in a traditional chart sense, do you have to throw that out with this draft where you've said before that the value is really in the middle? Does that change?
Well, see, that's exactly it, because now we're going to get into it where you are going to see some value. And you're going to see, I think you're going to see people clamoring to get up now. People are going to try and get into the 2nd and 3rd round again. And you'll see guys, doubling up and offering 2 of these or 2 of those or something from next year. Because, we really felt strongly about getting back into the 3rd round and being able to get the extra 4th. So we feel very confident and comfortable going in that we have a chance, I think, to add on some guys that will contribute, that could end up, playing, 50% or more next season for us. There's some guys now coming up that really their value, again, if guys hadn't gone back this year, from the COVID year, some of these guys could have potentially been considered earlier picks. But because so many guys were in this draft, this is where the value is going to come. And that was, one of the reasons why Martin the last few days has been working on trades.
And is trading back still a priority, or do you feel like confident or comfortable with what you've ascertained now?
Yeah, I think we've got a good group of picks now, but we're going to look at every opportunity to make ourselves better. And if we get an opportunity to go back tomorrow that makes sense for us, and we've got a good group of players we feel comfortable with, and we're not going past that group, then we'll consider going back.
For either one of you, I know you saying you feel comfortable about adding the extra picks and because of the depth in the draft, but does tonight's trade allow you to also have an opportunity to move up, either, maybe in the, taking the 2 4th-round picks and say moving up and getting an extra 3rd-round pick or something like that you just didn't have before?
It does, but again, it's going to be all about, do we see the value in the player we want? Again, one of the things that we were just talking about, and we were just counting them up, guys as to where we're going to project they're going to fit. Are these going to be the value guys for us in the 2nd round, and is this list going to be the value guys for us in the 3rd round? And that list or that number of guys could be anywhere from 8 to 10, that we project for 2nd round. Go down now, look at 3rd, and that could be, anywhere between 6 and 5, or just a small number. So we have to really, as we decide that we feel we got to come up to get that guy, then we would take, you could take your 2 4s, right, Martin, and get yourself back up there.
Package up, yeah.
So we got to look at that.
And I may have missed this because I got in here just a slight bit late. Is there any concern, with Dotson being a little bit smaller, that he's, that now you have a group of guys that are, again, kind of shorter, smaller, what have you, as electric as they are?
Not necessarily, just because his catch radius, his ability to go up and get the football, and again, the thing that you see is the contested catches. I mean, going after the football, doing those things. I mean, Terry's over 6 foot, Diami's over 6 foot, Cam's way over 6 foot, Dak's right at 6 foot. So it's not like we have guys that are all 5'8". We don't have the fun bunch. Which would be cool though. But what we do have is we got a good group of guys that will go after the football. Are known for making contested catches, and so you want that. You want guys with catch radius, and so I think that makes up for it more so than anything else, is that they have the ability to go up and get the ball. Go ahead, throw it at him. Oh.
We don't want him throwing
Ron, you mentioned that some of the offensive coaches felt that Jahan in particular was a good fit for the offense. What parts of his skill set make him, I guess, a better fit?
His interior route running is one thing, more so than anything else. We look at guys that have that skill set. Last year, Adam Humphrey filled that role for us very, very nicely. Dax is developing into that type of guy as well. So we feel we have a couple of guys right there that can do it. We can get a healthy Curtis back on the field as well, and now you start creating different combinations of guys, for situational football. That's really what you feel good about. Another thing that he has, again, he's got the ability to go vertical and make some plays because he understands route running on how to stack people, how to set people up. Again, a lot of those highlights really showed some of the things that got our attention.
And when you have a good interior route runner or a guy that can go vertical like that, what does that allow Scott or Drew or what does that allow your offense to do?
Well, what it does is now you have those different skill sets that you need. You got the guy that's going to go vertical and challenge through the middle post. You have a guy that's going to run a specific type of combination underneath with a guy over the top. You have to be able to threaten and attack zones a specific way. You have to have guys that got to win quickly against man coverage. And, we feel that watching him on the tapes that we watch, that this guy's more than capable of getting off the line, using his quickness, and getting into his route quickly.
There were so many wide receivers early on. How much of the scouting process was centered around Carson specifically and what they could do with him?
Well, I think a lot of that happened, once we got Carson, obviously, then the focus really became on getting him the weapons, looking at these guys and saying, okay, obviously the biggest target was London. I mean, you said this guy's just, gigantic catch radius, a big body, knows how to separate. But then you started looking, okay, this is a speed guy that's going to get downfield and, he'll make these plays over here, but he's not as polished an underneath route runner. And then you got the Dotson, you sit there and go, wow, this guy's a polished route runner who works very well underneath, but he also has the ability to go vertical. And we thought, this is how we'll rank him, this is how we'll put him, and this is where we think he fits the best. And when we got to there, as Martin said earlier, we knew this is where we couldn't pass him up.
Let's take 2 or 3 more. Just going back to what Martin was saying about how sometimes you don't spend as much time with the prospect because you feel comfortable about. I'm just wondering, how do you square that? You talked a lot about the importance of this combine or this draft process of getting to know the guys and seeing how they react up close and all the stuff you couldn't get over Zoom. So I guess just how do you kind of square that or how comfortable are you with it?
Well, a lot of the things that happen, as Martin said, is there are some guys that are so clean. You meet them one time, you get an opportunity to talk to them one time, and you go, okay, like who he is. Sure. And then you don't have any more questions. Well, we brought 30 guys in because we had questions on every one of them, or we hadn't had an opportunity to interview them, but when we wanted to at that point. And that's how you do it. I mean, there are some guys. I met Luke Kuechly one time. Okay, Cam Newton, I met repeatedly. So there are some things that you have to get answered, and then there are some things that just answer themselves. And Jahan was one of those guys. You talk to him, you see him, and you go, okay, that's a guy. We're good with him.
Yeah, you seem very kind of surprised in like a fun way. Just what was that conversation with him like, and getting to talk to him?
He was very cool. I mean, just very casual. Sound like they were having a good time. You could hear everybody in the background. And he was just, he really was. He was composed. I've talked. Some of the guys I've talked to, you can tell they're fired up and they're just, they can't control themselves. He just seemed to compose them. Yeah, this is great. Hey, I'm fired up, coach, ready to go. And okay, cool. And I told him, I said, they're going to announce your name, and we got a chance to watch it on TV, and then we talked to him again.
And Martin, when you guys do trade back, some of the guys who had been linked to you throughout the process, Chris Olave, Kyle Hamilton, they went. So I guess is that something that you ultimately felt comfortable with in terms of trading back and seeing those guys possibly get off the board?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of guys get linked to us, and they're not necessarily linked to us. So that we have guys that we target and guys that we like, and it's not always in the media who those guys are. Jahan is one of those guys, for example. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Let's take two more.
Ron, obviously, you're focusing on what you guys are doing, but there was a big trade in the division. A.J. Brown to Philly, and obviously that's one of the guys we've been tracking this offseason. What did you just kind of make of that choice for the Titans to kind of move on?
Well, it's obviously a decision they felt was best for their team. They felt they were getting the same type of receiver, I think, and Burks. Burks is the guy that we liked. He's also a guy that we brought in and wanted to get to know a little bit, or not brought in, but we actually did do a Zoom with them. But I do know, we sent one of our coaches out to visit with them to get to know them even better. So that's pretty much what they did.
He also, though, A.J. Brown apparently has a new deal, obviously, with Terry's situation. How do as these other deals now start to come in play, how do you think that impacts what you guys are looking at with Terry?
I don't think it impacts a different player, different style. More so than anything else. I mean, it's just one of those things that you go through negotiations based on what the player is for you, and obviously, they're going to tell you what they think about what his value should be. So we'll just work through it and negotiate it and go from there. And just so you know, we have started that process. Okay, we'll give you guys that right now.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Go ahead.
Well, fine. To what degree have you started? How far along are you?
We talked. We have.